Welcome back to the Nebraskabilities podcast. My name is Zach. I'm here with my lovely co-hosts Nate and Andy, and we're here to talk about yet again another W from your Nebraska Cornhuskers, battling against the Northwestern Wildcats on the 21st of October, coming out with a very ugly, what felt like one of the longest games to watch ever, but an ugly, but a win regardless, 17-9. Yeah, that was by far a football game. That was one of the football games of all time. And I know, and so the three of us, all three there, were in the stadium even. So it was nice to go and see a Husker game live again. Been a while for me personally. So just, quick thoughts on the game to kick us off. Defense, once again, showed out like they keep continuing to do, which is always great to see. For those of us that love the defensive battles that football, is known for most times, especially in the Big Ten West this year. That was by far one of the best defensive performances I think our team has put on top of one of the most Big Ten West games of the year. It seemed like a lot of the Big Ten West had quite their own version of the most Big Ten West game of the year, though. A lot happened this last weekend. And to cap that off, of course, got to give a shout out to the number one volleyball team in the country as well, with the Nebraska Cornhuskers, which also the statistic came out that game was watched more than our football game. So hats off to them, obviously. We'll get more into detail, but I'm going to pass it to one of you boys. I'm going to let Andy go first and just give your quick thoughts on the game.
Yeah, like you said, it was a very beautifully ugly game. I am of the opinion that like I have stated before, I will miss this division once it is gone. I am a true college football sicko fan. I love these types of games where everything is just so ugly and just so bad, and yet at the same time, it's like, this is football. This is Big Ten West football, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So I'm enjoying every one of these last beautiful, ugly games that I can, and even going back and I watched the highlights of the Iowa-Minnesota game just because I wanted to see, because that game happened when we were all at the game, so we didn't get a chance to watch that too. But just how beautifully bad and ugly all of these games are. And in regards to our game, it was definitely looked like that both teams that came off a bye and not played for a couple of weeks for sure. Just knocking off some of the bye week rust. And, once we emerged from the game, I mean, we found out on Monday just the injury bug just keeps hitting the Nebraska offense time and time again. And the stat now, I think, is 8 out of the 11 starters that started the season on offense are all now injured and playing us back. And we're playing with backups in 8 of those 11 positions. So not what you theoretically want to see out of a team that is in the midst of trying to make it to a bowl game now. They're 2 wins away. First time that Nebraska's been above 500 since 2001. And that is just something that I think we have to just enjoy right now. It's been ugly. It's been very ugly up until this point. It has not been the best football that, Coach Rule probably wants to see and what we as fans want to see. But at the same time, it's what you would expect out of a rebuilding year. Rebuilding program essentially is what Rule is trying to accomplish here. And, I think every single day that we should all get up and look to the heavens and thank Tony White for what he has done to keep Nebraska in this season so far on the defensive end. And, there's not a single chance that Nebraska would be 4-3 if it was not for Tony White and his defense and what they have been able to do to turn that group around. They finished the game with 8 sacks, and a lot of that is Northwestern is not a really good football team either. They certainly surprised us that they were better on defense than I thought they were. Again, how much of that is the testament of how Nebraska's offense is. Who's to say? But they're one of the worst rushing defenses, and they kind of kept our rushing game down. I mean, they limited a lot of the big rushing plays that I thought Harburg or Emmett Johnson were probably going to pop off, but at the same time, I mean, that's just a testament to it's a week to week season. And things can happen, especially over a bye week where you have time to kind of tinker and be able to adjust and do some more new things and some new schemes to kind of plan for your upcoming opponents. So I'm sure that's what Northwestern did. I'm sure Coach Rule wanted to do that too, but he said after the game that they did a lot of the bye week stuff to kind of get Billy Kemp the ball, and we saw him go out in the first quarter, and then you add that on top of two more starting offensive linemen that are out for the rest of the season now. So now you're playing essential backups on the offensive line, backups on quarterback, running back, receiver. The only position group that really hasn't been touched is the tight ends, and you can kind of argue that one is a starter over the other, but they both play the same amount of time. So I don't really know if you can define a backup at the tight end position at the same time. Regardless, it is like Zach said, at the end of the day, Nebraska got the win. They are taking kind of what Iowa is and not really adapting it to themselves, but they're kind of being what Iowa is right now. Is you have not even a manageable offense. I mean, they have the better offense compared to Iowa, but at the same time, it is not super effective when you look at the numbers and the stats and everything. Offensive wise, we're better on Iowa, but I mean, they're doing what Iowa does, is they're letting their defense kind of put them in positions to win games. Nebraska hasn't really got a whole lot out of the special teams in terms of setting them up for field positions or getting them, some good kickoff returns, punt returns, touchdowns, scores like that. But it's what Nebraska needs to do right now is kind of focus on those phases of the game to kind of set up their offense for success. Because now going forward, I mean, there's just so much more unknown with the offensive line, what the receiver room is going to look like. Kemp is going to be back at some point in the season. Who knows if that's going to be the last couple of games, possibly a bowl game if they go that far. It's really tough to tell right now with how this offense is going to look and what we're going to do from here. But those are my initial thoughts there. Just overall, an ugly, beautiful Big Ten West game. Nebraska gets the W, and we don't apologize for wins in the Big Ten West.
Yep, I think that is key there. We don't apologize for wins, period, and we don't apologize for them, especially when they come against the Big Ten West. So we are, I don't know, it was an ugly game, but we found a way to win it, and at the end of the day, that's really what matters. Defense, I mean, like you said, Andy, 8 sacks is gonna take you a long ways. Like to see, I mean, a turnover here and there, but I mean, they're swarming to the ball. They're for the most part limiting the big plays. They had a couple chunk yardage plays that they did give up, but I mean, they were playing essentially bend don't break, and they did not break. I mean, you held them to a field goal every time they're in scoring position, and that counts for a lot. I mean, the offense is what it is, like you said. We're playing a lot of backups. It's just kind of hope for the best at this point and kind of put the best products that we can out there and see what they can do. It's going to be an uphill battle, but they ultimately did what they needed to do to win the game. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. Yeah, they have a lot to clean up. It's not necessarily a great product, but they scored the one touchdown that they needed to really kind of put the game out of reach. And yeah, it was a game. It was one of the games of all time, as Zach said. And I don't know. Going forward, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that offense, who really, sprints ahead in that running back room, and who shows up in the wide receiver room. Hopefully I don't know. I keep hoping our tight end room shows up at some point more than to catch a piece per game. But I don't know. We'll see. But, the Huskers pulled it out. They won. It's on to Purdue week, and I'm excited. That's kind of my my quick and dirty thoughts. We're we have a lot to learn from it, but just got to keep moving forward.
All right. Well, with that, then we'll just jump right into arguably probably the most to talk about from this game is by far the offense. But it's already been stated. I think, Andy, you said it, or Nate, we've all kind of mentioned it. We're playing with 80% backups now.
Pretty much.
And so, yeah. And so, last week we talked about how, is what Satterfield is getting from some fans, me included, is it really fair to harp on him so much when the offense that we're giving him or that he's working with, I guess, is so depleted. And, now, there's still some questionable play calls. I think there's no doubt about that, but you could say that in almost all of football right now. It seems like there's a lot of, we've said that all year. It seems like there's just a lot of coaches that are trying to be smarter than what they need to be or something, whatever the symptom is, I guess, a lot of these coaches have it. And I don't necessarily think Satterfield's the worst thing ever either. But with what he's got to work with now, our offense is bound to look not great, and combine that on top of all the rust coming off of the bye week. It was kind of a perfect storm of a bad offensive showing, and yet at the same time, it was enough to win. And so realistically, this is more of a overall point to the team rather than just the offense itself. But specifically, I guess the offense, they weren't getting anything going, but they got the plays that they needed when they did. Specifically, the one to Malachi Coleman, the touchdown to him was awesome to see. I forgot, it's been long enough since I've been to a Husker game in person. I forgot just how loud and how crazy it can get. It's always a good time. Even when it isn't necessarily a touchdown, it's loud and it's boisterous. It's fun. But then, that was later been told that Rule said that was basically Tom Osborne said, well, if you're going to do this option run, you have to do the option pass. I can't remember the exact name of it right now,
Fullback belly.
Yeah, there you go. And that was the play that got it. So it's like, well, Tom Osborne's still helping out the Huskers, it seems. But, going back to, Satterfield and what he's got to work with, our offense did not show up, and yet they still continued to go out onto the field and battle. And I think, again, to the overall point of the team, we've seen a shift from even the beginning of the year where, we lost Minnesota in the last minute, which, of course, all of us, at Hot Take Nebraska here, we're like, oh, it's more of the same. And we immediately wanted to write the season off. And I think we've seen a drastic change, if nothing else, in the mentality and the attitude of the team, where the offense, I'm just looking at the stats here. Heinrich had a QBR of 19.3, which, for those that don't understand the rating, you want the number to be higher, much higher. 19.3 is bad. And I don't think he's going to sit there and tell you that he played the greatest game either. I'm not saying, I would much rather have him because he's a proven asset at this point, but still, you want a much better product from your quarterback than that. But, they still kept going out there. They still got the job done. They did what they needed to do. And yeah, it was rough to watch. It was very rough to watch, but they did what they needed to do and they won. Again, you don't apologize for wins, but when you look at it critically, I think it just stands as a testament to, again, the mentality and the attitude that Rule has instilled in the players. And of course, his pregame speeches of, if we die, we die. Whatever he puts in his soup in the morning or whatever, what he's taking for lunch, I want some of it because that kind of attitude is what I need, to go do the rest of my work half the time. But yeah, it's on one hand, I wish our offense was more exciting, but when you look at all the stats and how broken we are, I guess, if you will, and how depleted we are, a lot of this is almost to be expected at this point. These stats are just bleak. Obviously not the defensive ones, but man, these offensive stats are just they're offensive, ironically enough. And so, yeah, this makes me just more excited for coming years because this is the biggest speed bump of our team right now. And if anything, it's going to give a lot of young guys plenty of chances to play and really grow into that position, which is good on one hand, but we're kind of having to burn some red shirts. But I don't really think that's too big of an issue personally on the red shirt front, just because we have no choice at that point. Like we have to play them at this point, so it's really tough to be worried about a red shirt when you have to be more worried about fielding an offense. So, yeah, I mean, to me, the offense, just kind of rounding out my final thoughts on them, so as we don't belabor a point for 400 minutes. For me, it's resiliency. I mean, if I had to stick one word to them, it's either that or just, or a phrase, I guess, mental toughness. They, regardless of how slow everything got going, they stuck it out. They battled. They they did what they needed to do. So pass it over to Andy.
Yeah. So I am sticking to my bit. I know that we had talked about is, again, I know I shouldn't be saying it. I know I shouldn't be willing it to existence, but there was a growing part of me, especially the first two interceptions after Heinrich threw them, of, is this the game that we're going to see Jeff Sims? That first drive, I think, obviously it was one play because he threw an interception right away. Going into that game, I mean, Northwestern had the worst run defense, one of the worst run defenses in the nation. And Satterfield comes out and throws a pass immediately into the wind. It was a bad pass by Heinrich because he threw it behind Fedoni and right to the defensive back. I don't know what caused Satterfield to even call that play when, I mean, I get trying to come out, trying to hit a big hitter right away. But if you're trying to feel out an opponent on the first drive of the game, I don't think throwing it with a guy that has not really been known to be a thrower is the best move. And then, the second interception arguably probably was Fedoni's fault because it went right through his hands. Could it have been a better pass? Probably. But at that point, I mean, Northwestern gets the ball within, your own territory immediately on two drives, and you're thinking, like I said, if we didn't have the defense that we had, there's not a chance that Northwestern doesn't score on both those touchdowns on those plays. And a little part of me was thinking, is this the game that we're going to see Jeff Sims now? Because now these are the mistakes that Sims started making when things started to spiral and that he got benched. Again, a part of me still believes that if you want to see what you're going to get out of Jeff Sims, if you want him for the future, then Rule is going to have to play him. If not, if you don't want Jeff Sims to be back next year, or if you don't want him to see what any part of his talents are going to be on this team, then I don't think you have any shot of playing him the rest of the year. And I think that is a question that Rule has to start questioning now, given the lack of offensive weapons that we now are limited to. And I mean, if you look at, I think the rushing totals for the team, I mean, I think Sims is still the fourth leading rusher on the team, and he's played 7 quarters. So that just kind of tells you just the lack of, I mean, injuries obviously play a part in that too, losing 2 of your starting running backs, or, starting running back and a backup running back. But I think at some point, if Rule wants to see what you have left of Jeff Sims when he's fully healthy, and if you want him to be a part of the team next year, or you want him to be somewhat involved, then I think you're going to have to play him at some point. And, Heinrich is, probably going to be playing more tougher Big Ten opponents now. I think you got the 2 or 3 worst Big Ten opponents out of your way now. And now you're going to really start ramping up into tougher Big Ten opponents. Purdue obviously is not going to be, going against Michigan again, but they're 2-5. They played Iowa within a 1-score game, so they're not just a cakewalk either. I mean, they got steamrolled by Ohio State, but that's Ohio State, and we're not Ohio State. I don't know. I don't know what you do at quarterback, because I think we're going to be having this conversation every single week especially if, I mean, Heinrich also fumbled a snap. These are, again, some of the same issues that Sims got benched for. And now they're starting to manifest themselves. And Heinrich didn't start making those right away. But now I think as the season is wearing on, as teams start to get more film on him and more game plan against him, I think that's starting to catch up to him a little bit. And, whether that's a product of Satterfield and Rule coaching and adapting to those changes and trying to make Heinrich better, obviously that's what we brought Rule in for, is to develop these guys. I think at some point, if you want to ask yourself, what do you have left at Jeff Sims? You got to play him at some point. And if you don't want to play him and you just want to run Heinrich the rest of the way, that's fine. Just know the fact that he's probably not going to be here next year. And you're either going to have to go quarterback shopping, or you're going to hope that one of your true freshman quarterbacks that you're bringing in is going to be a starter next year. And I think that's kind of the situation that Rule has to decide right now is, do you see what you have left to Sims, or are you just going to ride Heinrich the rest of the way? Because now you're losing all of your offensive talent, and you can still use Jeff Sims in a smart tactical way to get some of your big explosive plays. Because as we saw against Minnesota and Colorado, I mean, he can make those big explosive plays. He can get you just some chunk yards, just running the read option, doing whatever he needs to do. And again, I've always said, I think he's arguably a better passer than Heinrich. I don't know how much we're going to be passing the ball now that we have like nobody left to catch the ball.
We thought that early too, though, and
right,
we're still passing it way more than I think we should. So
yeah, and I know obviously Malachi had that big catch, and you want to get your true freshman involved in everything, but I don't think we're going to be targeting Malachi 12 times a game or anything like that. I mean, if we're passing the ball that much, I don't know what happened, but regardless, I don't know what you do right now with, obviously, I still think you play Heinrich. I still think you start Heinrich. But also at the same time, a part of me is, if you want to see what a fully healthy now Jeff Sims look like after you've had some time to coach him, hopefully get through those mental mistakes, you just got to see what he can do and what he can play like. Because I've always gone back to the fact is, there's no way he would have started the season if he was doing these mistakes during fall camp and training camp and all of that. Like, there's not a chance that he would have been the starter. But I don't know what you do with the offense going forward. Obviously you keep running the ball, but you got to start mixing it up. Is you can't keep trotting Heinrich out there for 15 to 18 read option carries a game. And yes, we know he loves to truck people. We know he loves to run people over. I think that's on Rule to tell him, like, hey, you got to start sliding more. Like, you got to start protecting yourself more. Because you start going up, I mean, they're going to be playing, Wisconsin and Iowa, these defenses that are probably going to knock you on your butt now. And if Nebraska wants to save any bit of explosive offense they have in Heinrich, you got to start protecting yourselves. Or, you start mixing it up and start running the 2 QB system with Sims in there. But again, I don't know if you want to mess up the mojo right now. And I mean, why mess with something when Heinrich's been winning the games for you again? That's his sample size is obviously a lot more bigger now than Sims. And I don't know how much now we can look back at is how much of that like what you can get out of Sims anymore. But I don't know what Rule does anymore. And I'm afraid that the offense is going to start sputtering a lot more if they don't start to try to mix up the offensive looks and start to, I mean, they're going to have to, because you're going to be playing with backup linemen now, essentially. And if you can't, even just create a little bit of run blocking, I mean, you can't certainly rely on the pass to get you down the field to win games anymore. You can only run that fullback belly so many times before teams start to pick up on it. It's like, oh, he's either going to hand it off or it's going to be some sort of vertical fly to one of the receivers now. That kind of play design only works a handful of times. But yeah, the offense is basically SOL right now. But I agree, Zach. I mean, they're resilient. They keep finding ways to kind of move the ball and keep, you only need 1 or 2 big plays to kind of get the momentum back in your favor. But, Nebraska's just slowly losing every starter on offense. And I don't know how much talent is left there in the backs anymore. terms of receiving, because you're going to have to rely on those younger guys to step up and start acting like they've been playing for 3 to 4 years, and they clearly haven't. So you're, they're going to just be go up against more physical Big Ten veterans that are going to push them around at the line and push them around trying to get open, create space, and all of that. And, the running back room right now is just running back by committee. It's just going to be whoever has the hot hand in practice. And, we were all kind of a little stunned that Emmett Johnson started the game last week. But I mean, out of the 3 backs, I wasn't overly impressed with any 3 of them that played. I mean, they all had, their nice little chunk gains, but I wasn't like, oh, he was clearly the dominant back in the game. Like, this is who they should go with, for next game or anything. I mean, they were just a running back by committee, and, they were there. They kind of helped what they needed to do and everything. But with that, yeah, I agree with you, Nate, at the same time. I mean, they got to get their tight ends involved. But, I mean, Fedoni had, 3 drops on Saturday, too? So
he for sure had 2.
Yeah, 2 or 3. And then, I don't know if the check, like that fullback check down, I'm still very puzzled on. Like, I don't know why you're trying to run a fullback check down receiving option to, a fullback. Like, I don't know what that play call, but yeah, Fedoni did not have a particularly good game. I mean, I'm not complaining about him getting the targets, getting him more involved and everything, but if you want to be an all 10 Big Ten caliber line, tight end, you have to make those catches. You can't be letting it go through your hands right to the defensive back. I mean, you can't be dropping a easy first down that'll help keep the offensive kill drive or anything like that. So yeah, offense is just a giant question mark right now. And I want to say I know what to expect every week, and we kind of do, but at the same time, I don't know what to expect every week now, because something new always happens and something fresh injury happens, and then it's like, well, what is Coach Rule, what are Satterfield going to do now? I mean, they're just pretty much got their hands tied behind the back of what they want to do, and I think it's pretty much just see if you can create space on a read option and hope it breaks for a big one to get you set up to do whatever you want to do next. But yeah, with that, Nate, kind of my little sad rant about the offense.
Let's say on a brighter note, we ran for 163 yards. Like, Emmett Johnson he made it look like a dominant back, but 73 yards. He had a long of 24 yards. Heinrich had 72 yards. Anthony Grant had 22 yards and no fumbles, which is great. If we can get that, confidence back up and instilled in him, we'll have hopefully some better times going forward with him. And yeah, I mean, it's an unfortunate situation that we're stuck in. I mean, you don't go into the season hoping that you're playing, 80% of your second string offense, but it's the hand you're dealt. And I don't know, it's next man up, and it's going to come down a lot to coaching at this point. You gotta get the guys prepared to play the position. Like, they may not be veterans, they may not be, have all the experience that we'd like, but we can still prepare them to be in the right positions at the right time, doing the right thing. And I don't know, I think it's not all lost this season for us. It's certainly an uphill battle, but there is something to be said. I mean, like we've all mentioned, the offense keeps fighting, and ultimately they have found ways to win, even though they've really tried to lose the game. And ultimately, I don't know, at some point it's going to click. It might be this game, it might be after the Iowa game, who knows? But at some point, things are going to figure themselves out, and we just gotta, like I said, trust in the coaching. Trust the coaching staff. Rule knows what he's doing. I mean, like I said, this team just feels different. They seem more prepared than past years. I mean, if we're being honest, if we throw a backup in the game for any of the Scott Frost years, I don't think it ends too well. And they're keeping the team afloat still, and it's encouraging to see, for me at least. Again, not ideal, but it gets the guys experience. They are getting just kind of thrown in there, baptism by fire, and at the end of the day, they will benefit from it, if nothing else, in the future. Even if this year doesn't work out, another year or two down the road, it's going to pay dividends. So I don't know. I think we just got to keep trusting the process there. Heinrich, yeah, he had the one interception that was definitely on him, the one on Fedoni. And then he had the fumble that he luckily was able to pounce on. But I agree that there are certainly some of the isms that Sims had, but he was able to tune it up and make the plays towards the end of the game when we needed him. And he didn't necessarily mentally cave like Jeff Sims did. And that is kind of where I would like to see Harburg kind of stay in his role going forward. The guys rally around him, and he, is willing to have a short-term memory on the plays that aren't necessarily going his way. And he could have just as easily on that very first interception, first play of the game there, could have just, hung it up and said, well, maybe next week. And he battled back. He threw another interception, and he kept battling back, and he eventually threw a touchdown. A beautiful pass to Malachi. It's going to be a learning and a growing process, and we know this offense was going to be questionable at best going into the season, and we know they have a lot to work on, a lot to improve on, but I don't know. In my eyes, they are incrementally getting better. It may not be leaps and bounds week to week, but they're fighting, and they're putting themselves in position to at least stay competitive, and that's, I think, all we can really ask for from our offense at this point. They just got to go out there and play their best, and limit the mistakes as much as we can. Obviously, I'm not going to be cheering on for 5 interceptions a game or anything, but we just gotta. I don't know. It's cheesy, but we just gotta trust the process on it, and trust that Rule has the right guys to kind of keep these guys on the right path. So that's kind of my thoughts on the offense. Luckily, we have the defensive discussion coming up next. So
Well, so before we go too far, even with all the ugly play from the offense, I think something that we all agreed on as we were leaving was that regardless offense, defense, that we played probably one of our cleanest games in terms of penalties. We only had 3. And yeah, I mean, I think the 3, I don't remember them all off the top of my head. I know one was a false start. But I think that was a huge thing for me, at least. In terms of the process and the progress the team is making, I think, previous years teams would have seen us getting 8-9 like Northwestern did. And we didn't do that. The next snap penalty, or the next snap mentality that the team has, is clearly, sunk in for the most part. I like how Rule says it, how it's, forget about it, just, don't, short-term memory. But obviously in a game as long and as play-based as football is, you can't forget because you don't want to do it again, but you don't want to harp on it because it's going to make your play worse. But I think, like you said, Nate, you trust the process. And the thing is we've said that in the past. When we started this last year, we kept saying we got to trust the process. We got to trust the process. It's going to, it's going to eventually work the kinks out. It never did. We thought maybe we were seeing some progress. And then as soon as we thought that, you get a little bit higher up, and then it would shoot even lower again. And so it's but this year we are seeing that progress. If we would have played Minnesota, instead of Northwestern, we may have, if we would have played Minnesota this last weekend instead of Northwestern or whatever, if we could get the Minnesota game back, I firmly believe that we would win that one now. Maybe even Colorado. Colorado, I don't think was ever really a lost game until it just became too much and the team kind of shut down, because that's how it sometimes works. I don't know. I mean, I think going into all of that, though, I think even with as ugly of a play as we've been seeing on the offense, we are seeing progress, legitimately seeing progress now. And I think there's a lot of good that's coming from it, even when the play on the field doesn't look pretty. And the fact that we finally played one of our cleanest games. Now, granted, it's a lot easier to see penalties to me on TV than it is when you're there. So who knows? Maybe there were some missed calls. There's always missed calls in football. I understand that, but what the refs called was 3 penalties on Nebraska. That's it. It's been a long time since we've only had 3 penalties in a game, or at least under 5. And a lot of that comes with growth. We're a young team, especially now with a bunch of backups. I mean, what do you do? But yeah, like Nate said, let's transfer over to the good part of the football game. But the worst part, I say this kind of jokingly. The worst part is that they've been playing so well, doesn't really give us much to talk about. I mean, to me, it was a good mix of, overbearing the opponent with how good the defense was, and then even when we gave up some of those big plays, like was it after the touchdown that we scored the touchdown, and we were like immediately they threw like a 40-yard pass to get right down the field. Yep. Yeah, and so I remember of us 3 sitting there thinking like, oh great, here we go. Like that's where the defense is going to break down. And they did on that play. And then the guy that let the guy catch the ball, Malcolm Hartzog, he then later makes 2 big plays and holds him to a field goal again. So it's like they very much have the bend but don't break mentality, but also are able to just overwhelm the opposition when they need to. And the worst part is you never know which one you're going to get. But still, like if you're a fan of defense, it's been a long time since I think we've been able to say this at all, but like the team and the defense and the black shirts, the guys that have those have earned their black shirt. Like now it's like, oh, this is what you're getting from a Nebraska football team is the black shirts, the defense. Like they're going to hold you and they're going to make you work to gain those yards. Yeah. They might give up some big ones now and then, and even with like, even with all the injuries and the offense not playing well, the defense continues to go out there and they continue to play. And they're like, hey, like the offense goes 3 and out very often. And the defense still trots out and says, we'll stop them again. I mean, really, the only time we haven't seen them do what they need to do was Michigan. But we now know that's because Michigan was stealing our signs. So
yes, you're right. That's a fluke in asterisk next to that game now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I really don't have much else to add on to the defense. I think the defense, once again, just being the cornerstone of our team right now in terms of, majorly on the field. They are majorly on the field. They especially were on Saturday. But again, I think they have proven again that they've earned their black shirts. And I know like a lot of people like to watch the offense score lights out, and they, you don't win games if you don't score. But like, a lot of people really, really want to see those 35, 42 score games type thing. Nebraska and the Big Ten by extension is just, or at least the Big Ten West isn't doing that. Well, heck, even the East isn't doing that. Ohio State and Penn State play the game a lot closer than even the Vegas thought was going to. So, the Big Ten is not going to be they're not going to be the Pac-12 or the Big 12 with with very little defense.
Right.
They're going to put on a complete package type of game, and it's going to result in low scores. But that's what we're here for. That's what true sicko fans of football love to see. And regardless, no matter how much my heart gets up to like 400 beats per minute, it absolutely makes for some exciting football as long as we come out with a win. If we would have lost on Saturday, we'd probably be talking a lot different. But
right.
I'll pass it to Andy for your defensive thoughts.
Yeah, just a couple quick nuggets that I love stats that, Nebraska is the 4th rushing defense in the country. And, they, like we had talked about, they gave up a couple of big runs, big plays that just kind of, set Northwestern up for field goals, but still top 5 rushing defense in the country. I think they're, top 20, close to top 20 in overall defense in the country. 8th, top 10. They're 8th total in team sacks, so top 10 in sacks for the defense as well. So obviously, racking up 8 sacks on Saturday helps that number a lot. But yeah, it's just, all the questions we had about the defense going into the season is, we all thought like the defensive line was going to be like, we don't know what's going to come out of that. We knew what the linebackers, so we thought our secondary was going to be, the core of the defense just because it was all returning. Well, just from, Tony White, Terrence Knighton, those guys are able to develop that line where kind of all the thoughts, have flipped now where like the defensive line is like the star stud group. Then the linebackers are, about the same just because we know who we got there with Reimer, Hendrich, Gifford, and them. And then the secondary, again, like Zach said, Harzog got burned on one play, made up for it a couple plays later. Outside of that, that was probably the biggest play. And, Omar Brown saved a touchdown run as well. But secondary didn't have too bad of a game either. Again, Northwestern really wasn't that good. They're playing also with a backup quarterback at the same time. But yeah, not a whole lot to say about the defense. I think the only tick against the defense is they just are not a turnover generating defense. And I think if they just had that component to them to where they were able to just create some turnovers and just get some momentum for their offense, I think, offense would be set up for a lot better success. Kind of like how Illinois is. The Illinois game is you set your offense up for success and the offense doesn't convert, which different story. But I think if they were just, able just to, poke some balls free, get some, like if, you're sacking the guy 8 times, hopefully you get some of those strip sacks, you get some of those balls to pop out and then your other defensive linemen are there to pick it up. It's, I think that is the only thing against the defense right now that I wish would be better. Again, I don't know how much of that is how do you coach turnovers? Is it just hopefully your players are in the right place at the right time? But I think that is the only thing against the defense right now is they don't create a lot of turnovers, but they make up for it by stopping offenses and just, bending and not breaking and just being able to get off the field on third down, not to let drives be extended against them and just get them rested so they can come out fresh and, get another 3 and out and everything. But outside of that, no other complaints of the defense. I mean, I don't think injury-wise, I don't think anything happened Saturday from the defense that I heard of or remember. So they should all be good. It was nice to see Reimer back in the game again.
There was only one. It wasn't really an injury. He was just held out more because he was banged up still, was Henrich. He didn't play. He already didn't play much, so he didn't go out with an injury. They like Rule even said like, he's a little banged up. We didn't want to send him back out there full time and cause an injury to be worse. So that was the only thing I remember.
But yeah, outside of that, defense, did what they needed to do. Is gonna have to keep doing what they need to do the rest of the way to keep just us in any of these games going forward. If our offense can't pick up some steam and some momentum, so I think if they just are able to get just even a strip sack, just an interception, just somewhere in positive field territory to set your offense up for success, I think the offense can put up at least a couple more points. It just helps keep the momentum in your favor and just helps your team overall. But with that, go right to Nate.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you guys. I mean, defenses, they're our cornerstone. They're the backbone of this team. They're keeping us in the game, and it's really fun to watch. I don't know. It's like you said, Zach, it's been a while since we've actually had a defense that, knows how to tackle and just, actually knows how to shut teams down for the most part. And it's exciting to see. They're going out there, they're playing with a lot of fire. You see, I mean, you get one guy that wraps up and then there's 5 guys right behind him, ganging up on him. And they all seem to be just really fired up and just excited to play. And that's really, I don't know, that's awesome to see. I agree with you, Andy. Turnovers they have to come at some point, right?
You're right.
I mean, we had the 2 dropped potential interceptions. I know. I think Stanford had one and Tommy Hill, I think, dropped one.
Yeah.
So.
The Tommy Hill one is bugs me a little bit because he technically plays receiver too. So you would figure he would have better hands than the one that went right through it.
That would make sense though, because it was right at the beginning there. He was excited. He was like, "I got this. I can run it for a touchdown." And that all.
And
he did the one
had
thing as a receiver
so
you're
much
not
space
supposed
in
to
front of
do.
him.
He did the one thing as a receiver you're not supposed to do. He thought ahead of catching the ball, and
He had
forgot,
so much
forgot
space
to
in
catch
front
the
of him.
ball.
He was gone if he had caught that.
But he didn't.
Yep. So, I mean, they're in position to make the plays. You just got to finish on those plays, and that will hopefully come as well. I mean, like I said, I don't know if you can specifically coach that, but I mean, they're at least in position to make the play. So,
I think my favorite.
That's why it's something has to give.
Right. My favorite, going back to like the swarming part, it was like the very last play of the game with the sack, where you had your 2 defensive linemen and then a linebacker all in on that last sack, and it's like, how does like 3 of your guys get in there on the last play of the game? It's just like, they kind of stood him up for a second, like walked him back, and then they dropped him. So, I mean, it was just fun to see like 2 defensive linemen and then a linebacker all in on that last sack.
It was also just fun to watch that last sack because, like, as it happened, I think all 3 of us were just like, "Oh, like this is gonna happen," and then they did, and I was like, "Yeah." But this might be a hot take going against what you guys said. In regards to the turnovers thing, I agree. I wish we could generate more turnovers, but I'm not as upset that we. Well, I shouldn't say upset. I am not worried that we haven't been able to do it. I think because right now, going back to our earlier point, we're trying to set the foundation as a football team of where we want to be. I don't think, I think the turnovers will come, but I think right now, just making sure that we can play defense the way we need to play defense is more important. And I think, again, the turnovers, granted, we should have had 2. We for sure should have had 2 of them probably there. And then we did get the interception at the end, which was whatever, but still technically a turnover. But regardless, like, I don't necessarily disagree that we shouldn't be trying to get turnovers, but I think right now the important part is making sure that we just play good defense. And so, not to take away from the point of, we shouldn't be getting turnovers, but I think that comes just as the defense grows together and gets better. But that's not going to be. I would say that's not going to be an overnight success, except for we've seen this defense take a dramatic shift from what we've had the last 3-4 years. So. Maybe I'm just tempering expectations to make sure I'm not disappointed, potentially with something else. But anyway, didn't mean to interrupt, Nate. So you can go back to you if you got anything else.
I mean, I was just gonna say we held them under 100 yards rushing, which I don't know how many games we've done that this year, but I know it's a lot, which is awesome to see. We held a team that's averaging 300 yards a game to 250. So that's positive, and we held a team that is averaging 20 points a game to 9. So, I mean, defense is doing what the defense needs to do, and they're just a treat to watch. They had the one bad game against Michigan, and I don't know, they have to carry us, obviously, but they have shown that they can carry us for the most part, and
they have. They just have carried us.
So I keep them coming. 8 sacks a game. If we can keep that up, I mean, good luck to other teams. But
let's transition over then to, again, probably our shortest segment. The special teams.
Albano probably heard what I said last week.
Yeah, he heard us.
I guess honestly, that's probably the biggest takeaway is, so when we were in the stands, I remember the announcer saying it was like a 39-yard field goal. I was like, that doesn't seem right. And then I don't know if I misheard him, which I must have, or if he got it wrong or whatever, which anything's possible. His kick was 47.
Yep.
And he drilled
it.
And he
probably had
no
at least
doubt
10, 15 more yards on that, and he was kicking into the wind too.
He
hit that in the middle high of the net. I mean, it was dead on.
You know where the Allstate hands are? He was like, that was his target, and he hit them. And it was just like, okay. And, like you said at the game, Andy, that's what he needed.
Oh,
And I think
he needed that
he
confidence.
had at that point pretty much everything a kicker can have against them. I guess I don't know. I didn't quite pay attention, but like against the wind, almost a 50-yarder, which he hasn't hit all year. And then, even Rule in his press conference previous to the game had said multiple times that, he's got the distance or he's got the technicalities to do it. It just needs to all come together.
Right.
And that was the play it did into the wind. Like, anybody that was questioning him, looking at you, Andy.
Hey, it worked.
Technically speaking, you were, well, we have to talk about this. So of course you were questioning him, but I'm looking at all the other fans out there that might have been thinking we had better kickers. Like I kind of go back to what I had said, or what we kind of all have mentioned, or at least what I remember saying for myself was that, it's eventually going to click. And when it does, I think he's going to be a really solid kicker. Now, granted, it was one kick. You might need to slow the roll a little bit, but he still did it. He did it. He now knows what he needs to do it again. And he did it in front of, 85,000 people, whatever the attendance was. So, I mean, but going back to the special teams, the rest of them, outside of that,
they didn't do anything.
I mean, I still maintain that even though we don't really have anything to talk about, I'm glad that we don't have anything to talk about too much, because special teams have lost us games in the past in such heartbreaking fashion. It's really nice that we can just be like, hey, they didn't lose the ball. Hey, they did the thing. Like, it was, I guess, a good testament to just the team in general. Again, where when Billy Kemp went out, because he is our punt returner,
right,
and then went to Alec Bullock, and I mean, yeah, he didn't blow the roof off the stadium or anything, but he did what he needed to do, and he caught the ball.
And that was going to be my question: is now who is going to be back there taking kicks or punts or whoever you want to put back there? Are you just going to send a wide receiver there to fair catch everything just because you don't want to trust a younger player to start making kick returns and fumble? Do you just want a nice, secure, fair catch now going forward and just kind of take out the punt return game at this point? Because kick return, you can kind of get away more with having a younger, faster guy back there. But with punt returns, I mean, you have the chance of getting lit up, fumbling the ball, trying to return it, and all of that. So now it's up to Ed Foley, is who do you trust back there to either take the return if you are going to return it, or do you just want to put Bullock back there just for a for sure hand to fair catch every single punt or anything like that? So got to decide that going forward now. But yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Yeah. Alvano, I mean, we knew he had the talent. It's good to see that he is hopefully getting the confidence and stepping into his role. Buschini just needs to be a little more consistent. But again, he's not like you said, he's not losing us the game. So I don't have any strong opinions there.
I'm looking at his stats real quick. And yeah, I mean, he's okay. I mean, I don't know what goes into the punt game, but like I'm looking at, he punted 7 times, which first of all, woof. But he punted 7 times, and 4 of those 7 were in the 20-yard line, for Northwestern. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, they weren't the greatest punts I've ever seen, and they weren't getting them down to the 1 or the 2, but they were getting them back into their territory for the most part. Not granted, a couple of them when they were, I think at least one was out of our own end zone. So you can't expect too much there, but all right. With that, let's transfer over to the Purdue Pete's.
Don't.
To me, I mean, we've kind of talked about the whole game just from a standpoint of playing against Northwestern. This is going to essentially be, I think, a similar type of game. To me, I think a key point that's good to think about here is that we've talked about how, like most of our offense is backups now. And this is not to necessarily put Purdue down as a team. I think they're still a good enough team. They're just kind of going through what we are with the whole rebuild and all that kind of stuff. And I think this is the perfect game to get some of these new guys into the game. And I say that because I think it's going to help build confidence. Yeah, they might not play the greatest game ever, but this is a much better start than having to go up against a Michigan or an Ohio State, or even in this case, let's say Maryland. I think this is a good test to get. I mean, Maryland has kind of started to look shaky, but I think they're still a bit of the better team than us right now, just on paper. But I mean, I don't know. We've played well enough that doesn't really mean anything until you play the game. So, but for me, I think Purdue is going to be another good test. It's going to be Northwestern once again. Just not Northwestern, but another team. Apparently, their head coach doesn't like the N on our helmets, so I don't know why he's wanting to pick a fight there. But
He hates the alphabet.
Yeah. And we were talking about this beforehand too, but it's so ironic. I don't like the alphabet, as he's got a big P on the side of his helmets, but whatever, dude, you do you. Yeah, and I guess they're going through new head coach too, because Jeff Brom left. So, I mean, two of very similar teams. To me, I mean, I don't really have too much else to go off of. I really haven't gotten to watch Purdue much this year. Other than I know that they're
not good.
Yeah, they're not great.
We aren't good either, but
yeah. The thing is
but we're slightly better
until I can see a consistent. Like I know our mentality and everything's going to be there, but until I can see a consistent product on the field, I'm not going to give myself that. Oh, we're a better team. Let's just let them prove that. I'm not gonna make any assumptions on that. But for me, the quick and dirty thoughts, really just about what to think of for Purdue, is what I've kind of been saying the whole time is, kind of follow what Rule says. Just play the game that you can play, limit the mistakes. Specifically on offense, maybe let's try to set ourselves up for a little bit better success. Whatever that means in terms of if it's play calling or maybe finding somebody that we know. I think with Malachi catching that touchdown, maybe he'll become kind of the guy to throw to. I don't know that, but just kind of, I think going in, I think with Purdue, I think we're going to have a good matchup. So I think, play the game we've been playing and clean up the offense. I have nothing for the defense, nothing really for the special teams. I think at this point, I think the offense is going to be the one where we have to be like, okay, as long as they can maintain what they need to do and to get us the win, like they did against Northwestern, I think the game will be great. So I will pass it to Andy.
So if you have looked ahead to the weather, what it's going to be like on Saturday in good old Lincoln, Nebraska, you have seen that football weather is coming upon us now. It's going to be a nice 40s, some rain, maybe some sleet options. We don't know yet. It'll be a little windy, and if you are on the internet and specifically on Twitter, there's a nice video of one of the media members asking Coach Rule on Monday at his press conference about the weather on Saturday. And the entire time that the question's being asked, Rule is sitting there with kind of a little smirk and grin on his face, nodding his head like the true college football sicko that he is. He's definitely ready for this type of weather and this type of game. And I think that is what we're going to get on Saturday. Is if you thought last Saturday in perfect weather conditions that was Big Ten West football, now throw in 40-degree weather with some wind and some rain, and you're going to get even better Big Ten ugly football.
Last weekend's weather was just because the universe knew the Nebraskabilities guys were going to be at the game. They were like, this needs to be a perfect game for them.
I phoned one into my people. That's
could you do that?
Bless us with the nice weather.
Could you do that more often, or do you only get like 3 calls a year or something like that? Because
I use my one for a lifetime, so you're welcome.
Oh, a lifetime.
Oh,
well.
Well, there we go. I guess I can't wish for no more tornadoes or something. Thanks a lot, Nate.
But going with that point, this type of weather begs to run the ball. And I hope that's what Nebraska does again, is they know what they're good at. They know what they need to be good at is they have to run the ball. And whether that is, if you can run Heinrich 18 times and make him be healthy, do it. If you can get a few popped runs from Grant, Johnson, and have them hang onto the ball, do it. It is going to be a game where I don't think if you're trying to pass the ball in that weather, I don't think good things are going to happen for anybody on that field.
Hope you're ready for 4 verts on the first.
I was gonna say. So you're saying 35 pass attempts for the game?
If we're passing the ball 35 times with Heinrich, something seriously went wrong with the running backs situation. If we're having Jeff Sims line up in the backfield as well with Heinrich, then something seriously happened with the running back room that we need to address at that point.
Andy is trying very hard to not only will the Jeff Sims return, but also will more injuries, maybe, with our running backs. Like, we don't know what our running back room's going to be. Well, let's not, tell the universe that we're accepting of the possibilities. I understand how Nebraskabilities came about, but I really, really don't want
I don't want that
live
possibility
through it too much. This year's already been enough.
So again, Purdue is slightly better than Northwestern was, but I don't think if I had read some of the articles correctly that I did read about Purdue, Hudson Carr is more of a mobile quarterback now than Northwestern's, either their starter. I know obviously Northwestern played their backup, but I don't think Northwestern was much of a mobile quarterback team in the first place. So Hudson Carr is definitely more of a mobile quarterback. So I think Nebraska has to game plan a little bit more for that. And, Maccabee ran all over us last year. Now, obviously, we have a better defensive line this year, so we'll see if he has the same success against us. But I think Nebraska's going to have to game plan a little bit more with their blitz designs of if you're going to try to blitz a mobile quarterback, you better get to him type situation. I don't know how much Purdue is going to do that at the same time, but I think Hudson Carr is better at getting out of the pocket and being able to make plays with his legs and keeping plays alive in terms of that versus what we saw last week against Northwestern, where Northwestern is definitely more of a pocket presence passing team compared to what Purdue can do as well. So I think with, if Nebraska is just able to contain him, just force Purdue to make mistakes in terms of passing, all of that, I think they're going to be set up for success just with the rest of this game. And before I say with my prediction, I'll pass that to Nate.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting one, especially with how the weather shakes out, because I think Hudson Card is more of a mobile quarterback, but he's still a fairly decent passing quarterback as well. And so I think that hopefully works in our favor because our secondary has its moments. I think if this is a game that is won in the trenches, at least on the defensive side, I think we have the advantage there. Maccabee is a good running back, but we've faced some solid running backs, and our defense has had success, and so hopefully that'll work in our favor. Otherwise, it's just seeing what the offense can do. It got to limit the turnovers, limit the mistakes as much as possible, especially in an adverse weather climate. You got to capitalize when you can. You can't be. If we're having even just 10 passes in that game, you got to make sure you're pretty spot on most of those and get the ball where it needs to be. You can't be throwing too many interceptions or anything like that. And then, just holding on to the ball too. If it's going to be sleeting and maybe a couple flakes out there, the ball's going to be slick. So gotta just play smart, play well. I don't know. It'll be an interesting game. I think we're a 2.5 point favorite.
Yep. As a recording, at least.
So,
but here's the crazy part: the 2.5 favorite. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. The over under, and it's probably more because I think Purdue is a better offense than what some other Big Ten West teams do. Mm-hmm. But the over under is 40.
Yep.
Kind of surprised.
That should be lower.
That's 100. It should 100% be lower.
We barely eclipsed 20.
I don't know, but maybe this is the week, and I'm gonna just keep saying it till hopefully it happens. But maybe this is the week the offense puts it together. I don't know how. I personally don't know how they're gonna put it together when they have a bunch of backups. And I'm not saying the backups are bad players, but there's a reason they're backups. So
Right.
Nate, did you have anything else, or do we want to hop right into predictions?
Let's get into them.
All right. Well, since we're here, and I like to fall on my own sword half the time, I believe I won last week because I said 24-14.
Sure. I haven't even looked.
Okay. Well, we can debate that when we're done. I think I won. I'm the one that's got the sheet pulled up, so I just put it in there anyway. So I won.
Oh, all right.
Wait a minute.
That's what we're saying.
No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I did put that I won, but we can figure that out later. But
No, you probably did.
For Purdue, so they said over/unders 40. If the Big Ten West in the last couple weeks has taught us anything, it's that you bet the under. And I don't sports bet, but if I were a betting man, I'd bet the under, especially when it comes to Nebraska, and especially as of right now when right now our offense is very depleted, very not good, some might say. It's been enough, but not good. So for me, I'm going to say Nebraska's going to pull out another Big Ten ugly win, but it's going to be very low scoring. It's going to be another defensive showing for the Huskers. I'm going to say 17-10. Good guys.
20-13. Good guys for me. I think we send those big, scary Purdue Pete eyes back to West Lafayette on close to Halloween with a bag over his head because he's scary enough as it is. So I think we need to cover all that up.
Gosh, I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't think we're hitting the over.
What? You're the optimist. You're the optimist between the three of us. You're 100% supposed to be the one that says we're going to score 42.
In good conscience, I don't know that I can do that.
At least he's honest.
I think I'll go with a solid defensive showing. I'm not sure where we're pulling the points out of, but I'm going to roll with it. I'm going to go 21-6, Nebraska.
The points are coming from somewhere.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it'll come off a big pass, but eventually our offense will break one, and that's where we're going to have that hope come from again.
And then 2 defensive touchdowns. Yep.
That's right. Actually, I could see that. I could maybe not 2, but I could certainly see 1. All right. Well, now it's time for everybody's favorite segment. I need to see if I can create a little jingle on the internet or something. Firing. Get real technical into how we do our podcast. But everybody's favorite segment of the week, Fire into the Sun Award winner. Truthfully speaking, I don't know. I don't really have a good specific thing. I'd just say maybe our offense, but it's kind of explainable why they would be fired into the sun. So I don't know. I mean, if you guys got any, I'm willing to hear any arguments because I don't know.
I think the injury bug should be fired into the sun.
That is exactly what I was going to say, Andy. You read my mind.
I can get behind that. It was
so whatever that bug is, it's going straight to the moon.
Sun, straight to the sun. Thank you.
It's all in the same place.
I mean, all in the same space, but
Hey.
All right, injury bug it is. But I mean, if anybody else from other teams listens to our podcast, they're going to be like, well, yeah, duh. So I suppose. The only other argument I was going to make is maybe Satterfield for just some of the questionable play calls, like you said, with the starting on the game with the pass play rather than maybe getting the jitters out after bye week and just doing a quick run play. But he's been up there enough. I think he gets a pass this week.
We'll save the consecutive fire into the Suns for when he does something real dumb.
Right.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Moving on then to trivia. So last week we had. I remember here we go. When was the first time that Northwestern and Nebraska played each other in history? That was 1902. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the bonus question, which had nothing to do with the time period, who threw the swaggiest? We said swaggiest, but I think somebody messaged me later and said, "Oh, this was the person that threw the swankiest." So I'm like, figure it out. Like, which is regardless. Who threw the swaggiest Hail Mary touchdown pass against Northwestern? That was Ron Kellogg, the third to Jordan Westerkamp.
Western Snatch.
Western Snatch. Did you guys know, by the way, that Jordan Westerkamp and Tommy Armstrong were roommates?
What?
I don't know if that was ever mentioned when they played together, but they were roommates.
Zach, that's just exactly like, did you know that the Eagles signed Julio Jones?
And not only that, he was active Sunday night.
Yeah.
It's weird.
No idea.
They didn't make much mention of it on TV. It was weird.
It was so weird.
Anyway, back to trivia. So the winner this week was once again Chris. He got both of them correct. But we did have another submission from our good friend Brock. So we are officially now up to
Brock.
2 people that have played trivia for us. So regardless of the fact that Chris won, which congrats to Chris again, but regardless of the fact that he continues to win, we now have more than one person doing trivia, which is exciting because we put a lot of work into
here
to
fight against the Chris Empire.
I believe it's Execute Order 66, maybe.
Oh,
I don't know. I mean, we might be getting to that level. But again, so for those that may have just started tuning into our podcast, obviously we have trivia, which is this section. We just went over last week, so now let's get to this week's, which is we really couldn't figure out too much when it came to this. We kind of thought about it, and we were like, we don't know. So if you're watching this at the bottom, we have it ticking across the bottom.
Is Purdue Pete scary?
Well,
yes, and
everybody just send us yes, and we'll be good. The trivia question of the week is: what is the current win-loss record between Purdue and Nebraska? So between the two teams. What is that record? And then who is winning that series currently? So very, very basic, very, I don't know if wouldn't call it broad, but very, very simple, very easy to answer, I think. Yeah. And so then if you are interested in playing trivia for wherever you consume your podcasts, I put it in the description. There's a link there. If you are heavy user on going to I think it's called a link tree. I have a button there that takes you directly to the forum, the submit trivia answers here. So you can do that. You can do it directly from your phone. You can do it directly from your laptop. I don't know if we've said this before. We do accept smoke signals, carrier pigeons, Pony Express. Might take a little longer. So if you do that, you have to send it a little earlier. But you got a week from when this comes out. So, and then also we have an email, which is nebraskabilities@gmail.com. However you want to send in your answers, I believe at this point, like we've been trying to push more people to do it. We'll even take text messages. So, I think, yeah. So just to wrap it up, wherever you consume your podcast, we have all the ways to submit your answers there. And we also have our email, which I have in the video. Otherwise, it's nebraskabilities@gmail.com. And one more time, the trivia question of the week is, what is the current win-loss record between Purdue and Nebraska? And who is winning that series? And with that, I'm going to pass it around the horn for any final thoughts before we wrap up.
Scares by 90. Always.
Don't.
And for me, I'll just say 2 more wins to a bowl game, boys.
Hell
and
yeah.
I don't know about you guys. I might be getting a little bit of hype that we could see a bowl game. Because you know what that also means is that extended Nebraskabilities even.
Ooh. Yeah, we don't know what a bowl game preview episode would look like.
So
we'll see.
I mean, the boys got to pull it out still. Boys got to pull it out. And unfortunately, looking at just some of our predictions, just to kind of, we're at the middle of the season, we might as well talk about this quick.
Mm-hmm.
is that
Nate the optimist.
Nate was the
Hey,
optimist
Still
at
It's
the
7
on the
and
table.
5. At 7 and 5, I said 5 and 7 just because I didn't want to match up with anybody else, and Andy said 6 and 6. All of these are still possible, and even then, when we said these, we were like, these might be a little too optimistic because we were expecting a pretty down year. So, I mean, we might see some bowl action this year. Again, I'm not banking on it, but maybe. So, any last minute thoughts now that we've talked about bowl games?
Natty or bust, right?
Yeah, that's next year.
All
That's
right.
next year. We start the season next year with Natty or bust, drinking the Roulade, all that.
Well, Michigan's cheating, so like really, that's like an extra win for us at this point.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, if they weren't stealing signs.
And if we're at this rate, probably Minnesota cheated, Colorado cheated, so like really, we're like undefeated right now. Like I don't know what more we can do. Yeah.
If we go back and we just change some plays around and do some stat changing real quick, we actually win those games. So
Right. Yeah. So it's like we're really like undefeated at the moment. So
that's how I'm looking at it. So the Nebraska Cornhuskers have completely defied our expectations this year. It's crazy. It's weird. Weird how that happens. But with that, unless you guys have any. This is now the third last minute thoughts. If you guys have any last ones to tie us off, if you don't, I'm not seeing any. I will leave you with Go Big Red, Skurs by 90. Here we come, bowl game, hopefully. And as always, if it's a possibility, it's a Nebraskability.